Yeah, I mean, I already know I didn't pay it. I've already been blessed enough to be able to go this long without having to do anything about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna just whatever. What is it?
You have 3 months.
And I went out there. Well, no, I had to pay it.
You should.
Then I
never. Nah, they don't have no record. They don't know. You paid cash. That's on you. You could have got away with that.
I mean, maybe, but it didn't feel. At the time, it just
right.
didn't feel right. I did pay it. I just don't like. Why would I keep? Because obviously you could have said
that's your conscience. That's your conscience speaking to you. That's the Holy Spirit inside to say, nah.
Like, hey, you're in a better position now. Pay this. We got you by with this. But now I'm gonna pay. Okay,
it's
cool.
Time to pay it back.
Exactly.
That's the Holy Spirit.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Real Deal Podcast with
Brandon Haley.
Brandon Haley, baby. He's in the building once again.
What up?
So, ladies.
And Mr. Cleon Deal, don't forget to announce yourself. That's actually how we came up with the name of the podcast.
That's fair.
Cleon Deal, the real deal. Just so you guys know, no one ever knew by episode 6.
Yeah,
a little backstory on that.
Little delayed on that. But yeah. So, what we're gonna talk about is something that we talk about a lot is relationships. Now, the focus has mainly been relationships between us and a partner. But I think that to kind of broaden that subject, what a lot of people don't talk about is their relationships with other things that we manage on a day-to-day basis. So we're going to talk about a few of those things today. But first, I want to talk about, first what I want to do, Brandon. I want to play a game. It's a little new for us. This is our first time trying this. So, we'll see how it works.
Messed up, whatever.
It is what it is.
Going with the flow.
So what I have is 5 different types of relationships. All right. And what I want you to do, I'm going to name it to you and I want you to blind rank it 1 through 5. All right.
You're going to name all 5 at once?
No. I'm going to give you one. You're going to tell me if that's going to be 1 through 5.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. Make sense?
Makes sense.
All right, okay, cool. So your relationship with discipline.
Ooh. That's I need to know the other ones.
No. that's the point of the game.
Discipline's important, so I'll throw it as a 3.
Okay, cool. So discipline at number 3. Hopefully we can get a graphic up on the screen. Your relationship with money.
That would be number 2.
That's number 2. Your relationship with your partner.
There's one that I think you're going to say.
Okay.
So I can't put it there.
Okay.
I need to read you the ordering. Otherwise, this would be number 1. But there's a more important relationship that I think you should have that actually affects your relationship with your partner.
Right.
So based on the current rankings, I'm going to have to put that 4. I'm single anyway, so I'm allowed to do that. It's not hurting no one's feelings.
Understood. Your relationship with yourself.
I feel like that could be number 1 too.
It could be, but it's got to be 1 or 5.
That's so important. Are you even going to say the one that I'm thinking?
That's the point. That's the point.
So let's just hope that we're on the same page here. I'm going to put that on my number 5.
Okay. And then the last one, your relationship with God.
Okay, good. I thought you were going to say food. I messed that one up. Definitely relationship with God is number 1, because without that, your relationship with your partner is going to fail for sure.
Gotcha. So
yeah, that I feel pretty decent with those rankings.
So just to recap your list, so you have your relationship with God at number 1, relationship with money number 2, relationship with discipline at number 3, relationship with your partner at 4, and relationship with yourself at 5.
Yeah.
How you feel about that?
I would put discipline last.
You would put discipline last
and move the other 2 up. Hindsight, but.
Okay.
I'll rock with those. I'll rock with that.
Good. And that's something for you all to think about as well. And what order of importance are these things in your life right now? And how are you managing them? But today, what we're going to talk about, coincidentally, are your top 2. Funny how that works out.
They are important.
They are very, very, very important. So our relationship with God and our relationship with money. So these are the 2 that we're going to talk about today. Which one do you want to start with?
Definitely. Let's start with relationship with money.
Okay.
You have a good quote. I want to hear the quote. Do you have that pulled up yet?
Yeah. So basically, what the quote says, Dave Ramsey, by the way, a big finance guru. So if you don't know, tap in with him as well. But what he says is that you must gain control over your money, or the lack of it will forever control you.
100%.
100%. Super, super important. Something that you need to remember.
So let's bring us back to how the relationship, or how your relationship with money started. What does that quote mean to you? And just give us a little backstory of like how your relationship with money began, like starting from your first job. Did you grow up with it being like a scarcity, abundance mindset? Like, how was your relationship with money early on versus how is it now?
Gotcha. So growing up, it's funny, we didn't talk about money that much in my household. So thankfully we were well off, at least well off enough to which I didn't have to know if we were struggling. Right. So roof over our head, food on the table, all that fun stuff. So we were fine there. So money wasn't really a huge topic. So for me, first job at 16, working at Chuck E. Cheese. I was had me in the suit and everything.
No,
I was in that Chuck E. suit doing the Cupid shuffle like 5 times a night. It was crazy.
You stayed in shape though, that's for sure.
It certainly stayed in shape, and all those little bad kids that will pull on you while in the suit, that was aggravating. But nonetheless, so there started off first job making $7.25 an hour. So that was minimum wage back then. From there transitioned over to Chipotle, and then
that's when you were here in Tampa.
Well, that's first when I was there in Maryland.
And then you transferred here.
Then I transferred over here. So with my parents, money was fine. Money wasn't an issue, thankfully. But when you get on your own, now you have to pay your own bills and monitor those things. It's now a thing. So when I moved here to Florida, working at Chipotle, making $9-10 an hour, you don't have a lot of money.
No.
So what you tend to do, and what I did, is I did my best to hoard as much of it as possible. Obviously, as much as you can, making $9-10 an hour. Right. So I had bills, obviously. So my rent at the time, I was living in these low income apartments. It was like $465 a month for the rent. Thankfully, obviously,
Thank God for that.
I don't know where you're gonna find that's gonna charge you that today, but thankful enough to have that there. I had a car payment plus insurance, which insurance in Florida is stupid because you have to have full coverage when you buy a new car. So altogether, that's another like $600 a month. And then I obviously have the light and utilities, which is probably like another $100 a month. So at the end of the month, I got like maybe $50 in my bank account. And so when that's how you're living, I'm obviously not spending money on extra things. I'm not going outside. I'm not buying anything for myself. I'm not buying gifts. I'm not going out to dinner. I'm not doing anything like that because my mindset is I need to hang on to this as much as possible because I didn't have any of it.
So scarcity mindset.
A scarcity mindset, right? Because I'm scared that if I spend any of this, I don't have money for the other things, right? So then obviously as life goes, things got better. And even when we were selling insurance, obviously we have good weeks, we have bad weeks. Some things went very well, some things did.
Very up and down business for sure.
All right. Yeah, financial services is a roller coaster, but when it is up, it is up. But unfortunately, it is never stuck. That's just how it works.
Unless you're like top 1% of the industry.
Exactly.
You're doing really well, but it's hard to get there.
Absolutely. But so basically there were times where I was making more money in my account at the end of the month, which is great. Still the same mindset, right? Because even at that point, maybe having a comma in there, maybe a little over $1,000, still very, very scared that for whatever reason that I could just lose it all at any point in time. So still the same mindset in which basically if I wanted to go out to eat, like I had a girl at the time. So, you gotta take her to eat every now and then. You got to feed.
Red Lobster. You got to feed. Take her to Red Lobster.
Papa John's. we not. Red Lobster was crazy. We spent like our go out was $30 on a pizza and some garlic knots and a dessert or something. That's what it was.
Right. So compared to like growing up, that didn't really change your outlet or outlook on money.
Right.
That didn't cause you to have a scarcity mindset. You only adopted that mindset once you were out on your own.
When the only money that I had to play with was mine. Absolutely.
And then you're like, okay, hey, this is I'm an adult now. I got to figure it out. And
exactly.
Then how has your relationship with money changed since then?
Since then, obviously through the trials and tribulations and the ups and downs of life, I see it a little bit differently now. Probably during the time where I was struggling the most, what I found is that I started giving at the time where I was, basically at kind of the lowest when it came to my money. So I was giving in church, right? Just started giving weekly. Don't ask me why, right? Because financially it didn't really make that much sense. I didn't have enough money to really do it, but I did it.
Right. Doesn't it say somewhere in the Bible? I haven't read the Bible, but I'm still like
still working on it.
I'm still in my journey. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not perfect, far from it. But it doesn't say somewhere in the Bible about like how the money isn't yours to begin with.
Right.
So that way 10% is always God's
correct.
To give.
Goes into the
not that I'm not even saying that. I have tithed before, but I don't tithe religiously. So I'm not like downplaying anybody that doesn't or do it, but just a question. Doesn't say that somewhere in the Bible?
It does. It talks about tithing, basically giving the first 10% of what comes in. So that 10% belongs to God. Everything else you get to keep. It's kind of like an act of faith to say, I'm trusting you. Like, because imagine every paycheck you get, first 10% has to go somewhere else. And so you just have to hope that the rest of that is going to be enough to cover whatever else that you have to take care of.
Yeah. And it makes sense. I mean, it's always technically whenever I did it, especially being broke, it always worked out.
It always worked out. Right. And so that kind of had me seeing money a little bit differently as more of a, instead of hoard it and keep it all, but more so of like a transfer in energy, right? Because money is obviously kind of so created, but never really destroyed. But at any time, it's always changing form. All right. Yeah. So whether it's coming from me to here, to here, to here, at some point, I realize it ends up back to me.
Yeah. Money legit. What I've learned from being broke to making a little bit is like, that's all it is a transfer of energy.
Right.
And if you can learn to think in abundance, like it's going to continue to come to you. To jump into like my story with money, like growing up, I seen my mom and my stepdad have some money and then like lose it all in the 2007, 2008 in that stock market crash.
Wow.
They were in real estate at the time. So I was 8th grade, middle school.
Right.
So they had a decent amount of money, enough to where we had a huge house. My stepdad even had a Ferrari. We had a 27-foot boat, so decent sized boat. We had a indoor bar, an outdoor tiki bar. Like it was pretty big. We had a little outside sand volleyball pit.
It's a nice little setup.
Yeah. And being in 8th grade, I didn't really know.
Yeah, this was just life.
So I didn't really know. Like, hey, this is like we're doing. I didn't know we were doing well.
Right.
Because we went out a little bit more to eat, but my mom also had 5 kids too, so that's a lot of mouths to feed. It wasn't until until that crash happened,
right?
And then I'm like, oh, then we got to move, and then every year we're moving, and then dinner is just frozen food, like frozen Tyson patties, make you go heat up a hot dog, stuff like that. In elementary school, that was kind of what we ate anyway, so that didn't really change anything because growing up in elementary school, like I did live in a double wide trailer on my grandma's 10 acres, so it was in Lake City, huge land, so we always played outside. So this is like when I was really, really young. But then by the time I got into middle school, we had a little bit more money. Right. I didn't really know that we had it until it was all gone. And now I'm starting to get into high school and starting to realize like, okay, you can kind of see the people who have money versus people who don't have money.
Yeah.
And then it starts to make a little bit more sense to where my parents kept moving and moving and moving. At this point, I'm trying to be like, all right, like I've switched schools so many times. Like I'm not switching schools. Then I moved in with my best friend because it was just easier for football practice and stuff like that.
Right.
So that was like my first thoughts of money. And I never really worried about it until like I got out on my own. Because it was like, yeah, I don't really want to worry about it. I was like, I know I had faith that something good would happen to me eventually.
Right.
Now I know that you got to have some faith, but you got to have a lot of hard work too. It's not just going to fall in your lap, which certain things have fallen in my lap. Like by the grace of God, thank God for that. But then it was like getting into college, made the worst financial mistakes of my life because I was living in the moment. I had zero delayed gratification. So
worst decisions like what? You can't just gloss over that and not give us one to two.
To give you a very good summary of my collegiate career, my credit score started at a 715. And by the time I ended, it was at like a 414. So yeah,
you were trying. Huh?
I was trying. I wasn't trying. I was living in the moment. It's way better now. I'm just like 760 right now. We're not 800 yet, but it's way up from that situation. But it would just be certain things. I lived in the house with 4 other dudes, and they always wanted to go out. So I got to go out too. You know what I'm saying? Even if I got work at 6 a.m. the next day.
That's crazy.
And I was working at Publix for my collegiate. And being in high school and college, I was always working at Publix. So that was some of the worst decisions. And then I get out of college, and it's just like, yeah, what am I doing with my life?
Right.
Had no idea. While all my other buddies, they're engineers, or they already got their job set up.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, now I got to figure out how to make money. Like, what do I do?
Yeah.
How do I figure out how to make money? And it was, I knew I wasn't going to work at Publix because I seen like how they treat people.
Right.
And it's more of like the longevity. I don't know. They just don't promote the best. And I wanted to be at a place where they promoted the best because I felt like I had a lot to offer.
Right.
So then that's when I got recruited into insurance.
Of course, naturally.
And I wasn't making no money, but I felt like I was working kind of hard.
Yeah, I imagine.
And then I'm so hard-headed and stubborn that I just stayed in it. I'm like, no, if it's easy, everybody would do it. But it's really not that hard to make money. And if you find yourself in a position where you legit dislike your job, like there's other ways to make money. Like get out of it. Don't wait as long as I did.
Right.
I eventually started to get the hang of it. You know what I'm saying? And made a little bit of money. Definitely didn't even touch 6 figures, which is absurd because I had really good months, but then it like went downhill. Yeah. And that was kind of like when I got burned out of it. And my relationship with money, I felt like I was always blocking my blessing by thinking in a lack of instead of an abundance of money.
Right.
So it really wasn't until started working at the club, and then within a year I got promoted to VIP manager, and then I was actually like, okay, here we go. Here's the blessing finally.
Right.
But during that whole time, it's just like I was thinking in such a lack of, and it was just blocking the blessing until I just started to not care anymore. Like, hey, it's going to come, it's going to go. It's going to come, it's going to go. And then with that mindset, boom, that promotion happened. Boom, money was good. But then the relationship turned into, now I'm making money, but I don't feel like I deserve the money. And now I'm afraid to lose the money that I'm making. Right. Because it's not like I own the business. I don't own the club.
So why didn't you feel like you deserved it?
Who knows? Who knows? It was just I guess I was stuck in this lack of like this limited mindset of money. And that I haven't made it for so long because, like a year prior, that's the year that I only made $20,000 for the year. That's the year that I was burning out. That was actually COVID year. Right. I was burning out of life insurance and just didn't want to do that. So a little depressed, and then working into the club, but only working one night a week. Right. Very, very as needed type basis on that. And then once I finally got promoted, we had another guy. That was when January came. Yeah. He came with the total package, 10 years nightlife experience, manager experience, and all this. I'm like, that's why that was a part of the reason why I'm like, oh no. Yeah. I'm 1 year. I'm like 8 months, 6
Right.
months, whatever it may be, a VIP manager. Here comes this guy.
It can be a little
10
intimidating.
years.
Huh?
So yeah, I was a little intimidated. And I'm like, I just felt like I didn't deserve it versus all his experience and stuff like that.
Right.
But I eventually got over that. And it took a little while, but during that journey, so if someone is like having a bad relationship with money, now I'm like, I'm not afraid to spend however much money. To put it into perspective, actually, like this year I spent, or I've invested, don't want to say spent. I have spent some money, but I've invested literally 5 times the amount that I made in 2020. So I'm not afraid to spend it because I know it's going to come back to me. So, like I'm not afraid to tithe it. I know it's going to come back to me.
So what's changed about your, not just your relationship with money, but your financial literacy? What did you learn about money practically to do with it?
I would say in one of the audiobooks when I was super, because then in that stint of in between life insurance and working in the club, I was still doing like training people online, learning how to do that. And then a girl who I had trained me, she actually recommended a book called How to Be a Badass at Making Money by Jensen Sear. So in that book, it basically, she was teaching me like the fundamental rules of money, which is to have an abundance mindset. And that's the biggest thing that I think helped me, is to know that there is tons of money out there. Find a way to go get it. Don't be afraid to lose it. Just find ways to get it. Just like, I think it's Grant Cardone says, like, you can never save your way into being a millionaire. That's like, you got to spend money to make money. And if you come in with that mindset of, I'm going to be all right, money's going to continuously flow to me, and you actually believe it, like you actually have to actually believe that, then it's going to happen. And that's the biggest thing that changed from like the insurance days to now, is where like I feel like I could go anywhere and do anything and I'm going to make it back. It's going to be a little scary at first.
Absolutely.
But because there's no stability. But I feel like everything I've been through now is like, you got to have that mindset of like, don't matter. I'll lose it and I'll get it back. I'll lose it and I'll get it back. Next goal, $1 million. If I lose that, I'm going to get it back. No matter what, you always got to have that mindset. And I think that that's like through my own experiences, that's what I've learned.
Good.
What would you say is your biggest takeaway on like the financial literacy that you've learned or what you've been through to now?
So I'll say for me, learning how, like mainly just learning what to do with it, learning where to put it, and then knowing how to make it. So for me, one of the larger transitions that happened recently was you coming to get me to work in the nightlife with you. So,
I got promoted and I was like, man, I'm tired of hiring these chumps. I need someone who's actually good at their work.
So, because basically it's funny because for a stint before that, I got into a mode of like, I'm like, I need more money. And so I'm looking at jobs and I'm looking at this, I'm looking at that. How can I make extra money in doing what I'm doing now? You know, no wife, no kids. I have time. Right. So
utilize it.
Right. Exactly. Utilize it. So then it was just very tough finding something that I'm like, something that I actually want to go out there and do that's going to make sense for me and it's going to work with the schedule that I currently have. And then I get a Instagram DM at midnight.
I was working. I was like, who do I need here? I need Cleon here.
I literally look at this thing at probably like 2-3 in the morning and I'm like, I don't think I'm reading this right. And I just put the phone back down. And once I get up in the morning, the message says, do you want to make some extra money? And I'm like, okay. So being that I've known you for a while at that point, you know, I'm like, I don't know what it is, but it'll make sense. But what it also is the answer to the thing that I've been praying for. Because I'm like, I need to figure it out, right? Because I have plans, I have goals, and I can't do it with what I currently have. Like you said, you're never going to be able to save your way to being a millionaire. So I got to find a way to make more. So
always.
Once I was able to kind of come on board with that, it's kind of opened some doors for me to actually start even learning about money, because it makes a lot more sense to learn about money once you have it. Obviously, before you have it is the best time to figure it out. But once I finally had some more coming in, it allowed me to be a little bit more comfortable because every now and then I still have that scarcity mindset that I live into.
And it is harder to like learn about money when you don't have it.
Exactly.
If you don't have any kind of like safety net.
Exactly.
Because you're just worried about, how my bills getting paid, how my bills getting paid. Not worrying about how I could take this $5,000 and turn it into $8,000, and then take that $8,000 and turn it into $16,000, and take that $16,000 and turn it into 30, and then take that 30 and turn it into 100.
Exactly.
Like that's the name of the game. And there's a lot of different vehicles to get you there. Like the first vehicle I ever got into was the insurance vehicle.
Exactly.
The second vehicle is the club vehicle.
And that's where I saw real money being made. So that's
just not for me or you.
Yeah, exactly. It itself is not for me, but learning that, wow, there is a lot more out there other than this, job that I'm working at. There's a lot more opportunity out there. So that was the first thing that kind of opened my eyes.
There's a lot of money to be made. And if you can get your mindset off of that's a lot of money, to who? You know what I'm saying? When people say that's a lot of money, to who? You? It's not a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you have to have that mindset of like $20,000, that's not a lot of money. $100,000, that's not a lot of money.
Right.
Once you put a limitation on that, that's only in your own mind.
Yeah.
But if you think that it is, it is.
Yeah,
if you think that it isn't, it isn't.
Funny, it's like a funny story now that you said that. I think about the time where at my current job, I won like some attendance competition where the prize giveaway was $5,000 pre-tax. So after tax, it was like $3,500. And people talking to me after they saw that I won it, they're saying things like, "Wow, that is life-changing money." I'm like, to who? Because obviously this was after I worked in insurance and I saw people making that in a week. Okay. So I'm like, life-changing? So the perspective on it changed because before that, $3,500 to me would have been exactly that. Would have been life-changing money. But basically going through life and then also, like I said, learning where to put money. A friend of mine, my guy, well, I guess he's family, a cousin-in-law. He actually No Clearance podcast, so shout out to those guys. But he does a lot with money. And so he gave me a book to read because I wanted to start investing. And I'm like, I don't really know where to start. I don't know where to go. So I'm going to talk to the people. I'm going to use my resources. So I go talk to him and I say, hey, I want to start investing. Where should I start putting money into? He said, first thing that you need to do is you need to read this book. The book was I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit. I can't think of his last name off the top of my head, but that was a book.
I'll Teach You to Be Rich?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was the first book that I read really that was exclusively about money. So I read that whole thing. And the main thing that talks about is, I know you talk about delayed gratification, but what he mainly talks about is that you can do all the little things that you want as long as it's in mind. So if you want to go buy Starbucks every day, okay, that's fine. But you need to make sure that your budget and what you're doing there is going to be conducive to you being able to do that. So hey, go on the vacation. Don't stop yourself from going 100%. On vacation, but then make sure that you're doing this within as well. And that's kind of like the premise of it. So that kind of gave me an eye-opening experience on kind of what to do with money. Like you can enjoy life and then still make sure that you're setting yourself up for the future as well. So that kind of changed my outlook on that and how I look at it. Because obviously with all relationships in general, it's kind of like with people you see married for years and years at a time. Like, hey, we're still learning about each other even to this day. And it's 40, 50 years in.
The money game constantly learning, especially how to invest with stocks. Like I'm still trying to learn that stuff. But once you have it, it's easier to do. Since we're still on the topic of money and to wrap up this topic before we hop into relationships with God, what's the dumbest thing you ever did with money? Give us a story of like you weren't using delayed gratification and you weren't going by the golden rule of if you can't buy it twice, you can't afford it. What's something? Because I have a story that I want to share.
To this day.
And if it pertains to a female relationship, that's even better.
Yeah. to this day, still the dumbest thing, because I think I did tell this story on a different episode, was buying that chain. Because it put me, because obviously when you don't have any money, when your bank account goes the negative, you get overdraft fees. So not only so
they're charging the people with no money.
Exactly. I'm gonna take more money from you. So not only because even then, basically, I think that I had just opened one of my second bank account at that time. But basically, I'm getting text notifications about this bank account being under $50, and then I go and also do this thing, and so this one's now in the negative as well. So not only is it over $100-some in the negative, and so I'm like, now when I get my paycheck, right, $150 is gonna go just toward getting me back to zero. And then so then I'm there, and then it forces me to have to do things like I got to go take out a loan from like AmScot.
And that's even more APR. They're taxing on that.
And also they just take the money. So it's like they're going to get their money regardless. So it's like I take a loan for $500. Hey, you need to have this back by the end of the month. There's no, you know what I'm saying? Can I do it by the end of that month? That money better be there because they're taking it. So it just creates a cycle of you just being broke and trying to play catch up rather than starting from zero. Well, I'm sorry, starting from above zero. You're starting from behind. So to this day, still the dumbest thing on record I've done with money. So talk to me.
I'll say I've probably done a lot of dumb things because for whatever reason, I was stuck in this like, I don't know, I'm not going to live that long. I want to live in the moment. I want to do all the things.
YOLO.
Exactly. There you go. I'm living every day as it comes. I'm not thinking about the future. So I obviously didn't make a lot of money doing that. Didn't spend the money doing that. But one story that is great for relationships with money and relationships in general was when I went to Vegas. And I know I told you about this story.
Viva Las Vegas, baby.
I went to Vegas a lot of times when I, had not that much money. I had a little bit of money to play with and dabble with in Vegas. But this trip was different because I didn't have that much money. And I basically, while we were there, was there with, the situationship that I was in at a time. Right. And while we're in Vegas, that situationship actually ends.
While you're in Vegas.
While we're in Vegas.
Oh, that's great. That's a great place.
we'll probably dig deeper into that story on a different episode. But to keep it about money is then I'm just there doing my own thing, going on my own solo adventure, spending all the money, living in the moment, having a good time. And then basically spending all the money that I have in my account. But I know like I'm getting another check when I get back.
Right.
And then I get back from Vegas. And mind you, like me and the situationship are on the same flight next to each other on the way back too. So it makes it sweet. Makes it even so worse. Romantic. Makes it even worse. So I get back, basically got $0. I park at the airport, $150 to leave the airport. Right. Bank account's zero. Right. So I got to use a credit card. Or no, I think I still use my bank account, but then it went negative. So then I get another overdraft fee.
Right.
I'm just like, man, this like one thing after another. If you want to know what rock bottom feels like, I was heading straight to it. Because then on top of that, then I had a roommate, which you would know. I'm not going to say any names. He's like, hey, I don't have money for rent this month. I'm like, perfect. Now I have chance to save up a little money. Like I had just that money saved up for rent. That was coming on the next check that I didn't have yet. You know what I'm saying? So as soon as that check came, it was going straight to rent.
Right.
And then I was like, hey, you got to get back to the grind. Good thing we're in sales. Back to the grind. Right. I was like, all right, I know we're going to have a good week. We got to have a good week.
Yeah, you have to have a good week.
No matter what.
Or else.
That was the mindset. I have to. And then he gets the rent delayed to the middle of the month. So now we're in the middle of the month and it's the 15th. And he's like, I was like, hey, you talked to the office. You paid him your money yet? Or you have the money? He's like, no. I don't have it yet. I'm like, all right, well, it's a little weird.
What do you mean?
We're in the middle of the month. We got to pay rent now and we got to pay rent in 2 weeks.
Right.
My guy, we got to get it together.
Right.
Ask the office again. He's like, all right, ask the office. They gave us 1 more week extension. I'm like, all right, cool. And then right before that week was up, I'm actually in the house selling. I think I was training somebody.
Okay.
I was in the field with somebody and we're in the house selling a deal. And then I get a text from him. Hey, I'm not going to have the rent at all. I said, what
was he doing?
you know the kid. You can ask him. It's funny because I'm not even going to go there. Yeah, that thing ended up going to our credit, and I reached out to him and said, "Hey, do you want to pay your half?" And he got offended by that. I said, "This day and age of kids, I'll just pay it. I don't really care. I got the money now,
cool,
but I need it off my credit."
Right.
But basically, I'm in a house and I get that text, and I'm like, I can't even focus on the presentation anymore because now like my blood's boiling. I'm like, oh my God! So I'm like, all right, what? No, like, what are you talking about? Okay, so now I got to pay my rent, his rent, and then in another week I got to pay my rent, his rent.
Right.
So basically, I'm looking at it getting an eviction, and I was like, all right, call my pastor. I'm like, hey, I have no money. Should I get an eviction or what? Or should it try? Like, what should I do? I have no idea what to do because I literally have a week to pay rent 2 times, essentially.
Right.
For both of us. I was like, yo, get all your crap out now.
Right.
Oh, thanks for being so nice. No, get out now.
Shut up.
Literally, that's not what we're doing.
Come on.
So it was like, take the eviction, put it on your credit for 7 years, or just try and figure it out. Luckily, that's all I had to pay was those 2 months, and I paid those 2 months with all the money that I made selling for the next 2 weeks, and just by the skin of my teeth, like got by to live and not get the eviction. But, you know, eating like tuna and ramen every day. But after that, luckily, was able to find a roommate for that next month. So it kind of like worked out. So I didn't have to pay the 3rd month and 4th month at the time because money was tight, especially after all that. But had I not put myself in that situation at the beginning, you know, I would have had a lot more money saved up to where it wouldn't even have been
it wouldn't have been this.
Yeah, it would have been like, oh, I have the money, I can just pay it. Not, oh, I don't have it, should I take the eviction? But that was my one of my favorite stories about being reckless with money. So now we're a lot smarter.
Yeah,
most of the time.
You know, it's funny.
Being sober helps.
Yeah, being sober absolutely helps. As you told that story, it's funny. I thought about when I did buy that chain, and I completely forgot for whatever reason while I'm talking about this that I didn't have enough money for my rent and I didn't pay it that month. What it seems like happened apparently at the time is that I don't know if the leasing office didn't care. I don't know if they just liked me a lot because I had been with them for a few years at that point. But basically they didn't say anything about it. So I missed a whole month's rent.
You missed. Oh, and you never paid it?
So what happened
you
was
used your white privilege card.
Yeah, basically.
That's crazy.
Because missing rent at low income apartments, I don't know how forgiving they are, but basically what happened is that at some point the leasing office took over new management, and they started going through records, and that was after I had gotten back on a good financial track. So
then they told you,
they went back and they're like, hey, it seems like we're just missing just the stub for this. So basically just the record that I paid. So they're not saying that I didn't pay it. They're just saying, hey, we just don't have the record that you paid. I was like, yeah, I'll look through to see if I knowing good and well, I did not pay that month's rent.
God did.
Right. And so I'm like, okay. So I look through and I'm like, yeah, I mean, I already know I didn't pay it. I've already been blessed enough to be able to go this long without having to do anything about it. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna just whatever.
You got 3 months.
And I went out there. Well, no, I had to pay it. At that point. then I
never. Nah, they don't have no record. They don't know. You paid cash. That's on you. You could have got away with that.
I mean, maybe, but it didn't feel. You know, at the time, it just didn't feel right to be like, I did pay it. I just don't like. Why would I keep? Because obviously you could have said
that's your conscience. That's your conscience speaking to you. That's the Holy Spirit. Yeah. To say, nah.
Like, hey, you're in a better position now. Pay this. You know, we got you by with this. But now I'm going to pay. Okay,
it's
cool.
Time to pay it back.
Exactly.
That's the Holy Spirit. Speaking of the Holy Spirit, next topic we want to talk about is your relationship with God. And not to make this a super religious podcast or even episode, but I think that everything that's happened into my life, good and bad, is God's doing. A little bit's on me, you know. He's probably showed me the way to, avoid some of the trials and tribulations that I went through.
Right.
Especially with money and relationships. But the good thing is we're here now, and we've learned a lot, and we definitely thank God for that. But going into your story, because Cleon is a pastor's child, the pastor's son.
Yeah, you know what they say about them.
They're terrible.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Yeah, that's usually what they say. Nah, Cleon's a good guy. But what describe like your upbringing a little bit with like your relationship with God then and your relationship with God now, and how that's affected your life and relationships with your partners.
Yeah. So then versus now, the biggest difference is community versus individual when it comes to my relationship with God. Because when you're born into a family like this, so like you said, father's a pastor, but also so is the grandfather, and so is his father, and then uncles that are pastors, and aunts that are evangelists and missionaries.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who's in my family was somewhere involved in the church somewhere. So that's what I was raised doing. So every Sunday I'm in church, 2, maybe even 3 services on a Sunday. Tuesday, we're in Bible study. Wednesday, choir rehearsal. Fridays are youth nights. Then we started back over, at the start of the next week. Mm-hmm. We have conventions that we're going to that are a week long. So we're in church from Sunday to Saturday. Well, yeah, Monday to Sunday. For the whole week, we're going to conferences out of the state to just go to church. I'm in the choirs. I'm playing instruments. I'm doing all those things that was with
singing and rapping.
No rapping. It wasn't quite accepted at that point. But basically, because of that, obviously, you grow into a community relationship with God where everybody is talking about, what God has done for them. And obviously, we learned scriptures. Obviously, my mom had us reciting scriptures on the way to school every morning, me and my twin sister. So we're reciting scriptures. Obviously, we pray every single morning. But basically, at that point, the relationship was basically what was around me. It came to a point where you obviously have to develop your own relationship about what all of that stuff means to you, because obviously you can go to church, you can sing the songs, you can say all the prayers, but at some point it's got to mean something directly to you rather than you going through the motions. So going through that transition, obviously, as you get older, that's when you start to really deal with life. And then you think about all the things that they said in church, and you realize, okay, so now I get why this applied, right? So it was like through, let's say, transitioning through, let's say, our first heartbreaks and breakups. You're praying for a relationship that probably shouldn't last to last. That you start talking to God in a sense of, basically when you need Him, right? I think that's pretty original way for it to start, is you're praying for when you need Him. Then it turns into something, well, at least for me, it transitions to just an everyday, just a small conversation, God, why did I do that? Sometimes it's just like I'm talking to God as if, kind of He's right beside me. Like, why would I have made a decision like that? And then there's days where, you're just thankful for certain things, right? So like we talked about previous episode, waking up every day with gratitude. So now that's kind of like my current relationship, where the first thing that I do every morning is thank God for another day, thankful to be woken up that morning. So it transitioned from, like I say, a community to which everybody around me is involved with. So
now it's just you and him.
Now it's just me and him, because it's like one of those things to where, in a way to kind of explain it, is like when your family is that in tune with it, you're covered. It's just like they say, it's kind of covered by association. And so even though my relationship personally wasn't really 100% there, the people around me were saying enough. My grandmother was praying enough for me to which, what I'm saying, I was fine. But obviously, as you transition to your own things in life, I've kind of grown that relationship for myself, to know, to just be, like I said, to be in tune with it, to be thankful for it. It's just an everyday thing. But that's kind of where I started and kind of how it transitioned for me. What about for you?
Yeah, I'm definitely big on the trying to talk to him every day. I'm not perfect, so I definitely don't do it. But I even try and find it in the little things, like I can find a parking spot up front. Thank you, God. I try and find it in the little things where I can show gratitude and like start to have a conversation. But I would say my relationship first started with God would be in like youth groups at my church in Ocala, which was it's Meadowbrook Church now, but it started as like Church of God in Christ. It's a non-denominational church, I believe.
It was a Church of God in Christ and transitioned to non-denominational?
No, I don't know. Transition to Meadowbrook. They like do. It's like it's like one of those big churches now.
Okay, like a mega church or something?
It's like on the way to be like a mega church.
Gotcha.
It's a huge church now,
Mm-hmm.
with all kinds of people in there. They do it like very similar to like Stephen Furtick and Michael
Gotcha.
Todd. But that wasn't like super, super religious. Then I didn't go to church. And then when I really started to like, all right, like God's real, but I wasn't like living godly, I would say.
Still working on that today.
Still working on that. Like definitely not perfect. Still working on that in my journey with Christ. But in what year was this? This was a year I just graduated. So this is like 2013. And I was coaching at my high school, and I was leaving the gym, heading to my high school. And I was in this crazy car accident with a student that was leaving the high school. He was speeding in and out of traffic, coming one way, and he's leaving the school and I'm going towards the school, and he's going like, I don't remember, his speedometer stopped at 60, so he had to slow down, but he basically hops the median, hits me going head on. And I was luckily in a Oldsmobile at the time, and if you ever seen one of those, it's basically like a huge metal.
Say that one more time.
Oldsmobile. It was a 98, 88.
Oh yeah, they were strong back then.
So it was all metal steel cars. So thank God that I was in that vehicle. It's not the most appealing thing to drive, and I was a little insecure driving it, but thank God, because that thing actually saved my life. Basically, when I seen him coming, I swerved left, thankfully, because then he hit all of my passenger side, and all that passenger side caved up right into me to where it only cut my knee. Didn't do any severe damage. Like I literally walked out of it. Unfortunately, he actually passed away on the scene. But all this happened right in front of my church. So then I'm like, okay. I even when I go to get all my stuff out of the car from the shop, they're like, I'm not even sure how you walk away from this. So it was like hearing all these things, and then even my youth pastor came to the hospital to check in on me and pray over me. And he's actually the one that told me that the person that passed away, like, hey, no, it's not your fault, and prayed with me. And I was like, all right, this is a little crazy. Something like this could happen. Then it's like, all right, I know there's really someone out there looking over you. You got guardian angels. There really is a higher power. Fast forward to then in AIL, that's when I actually met my current pastor. And then that was a Pentecost church. So I'm really like the only white person there. So I get to see a different cultural side of the church life, which is really cool.
A lot different.
Oh yeah, a lot different. Very, very different. Takes couple times to get used to, but after that, I'm joining in there in the background, singing with them and stuff. And just after being like getting back into church then, because with life insurance, it kind of got me away from it again. Then starting to tithe again, and just every day try and build that relationship with God. It's not easy, because the first thing we all want to do, especially me, is like when things are good, you don't want to talk to him. You know what I'm saying? When things get bad, you're like, God, give me a sign. Let me talk to you. But that really changed my outlook after that car accident on like, all right, I know he's there. You know what I'm saying? Now I'm just working on having those conversations daily, just like you talk about. Typically I'll try and do it morning after meditation, even if it's just something quick, like, hey, thank you for health, wealth, my family's health. Watch over them, just something real quick, like, hey, continue to watch over my family, things like that. And then literally just on the road driving, oh, good parking spot, thank you for that. Just little things like that, that have really, I don't know what I'm really trying to articulate with my words right now, but that's just been the journey from then into now. And it's just, I'm not perfect at all, but I'm continuously trying to work and walk in my faith with God. Right.
Amazing. Yeah. It's one of those things, because like we said, with all relationships, and that's kind of what the main point of all this is with all relationships, you have to be consistently managing, or else it's not going to be successful.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing. And one of the other things too is like, you see it all the time about marriages that fail versus ones that don't fail. Yeah. Usually the ones that don't fail, they're like praying together every day. God is at the forefront of the relationship. So it's definitely important for you to get that relationship right. And one thing I'm forgetting about saying too is, yeah, this is why my whole brain went off topic, because I was like, oh, this is how I wanted to say it, and then I forgot to say it. So sometimes it's good to take notes, but everything I do is just off the dome. But it started coming. A lot of times, like I'll see very religious people talk about how like spirituality and religion aren't like they don't mix.
Absolutely.
I think that they do mix.
Okay.
Because I think God gives you the power to manifest. And a book that is really good at explaining spirituality and religion is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
Great
so
book.
I definitely recommend that you get that book. I don't want to talk too much on the relationship between spirituality and religion, but just read that book. It's really good. It dives deep into it. If you want to hear his life story, get The Surrender Experiment. But those are the two books that I wanted to make sure I said before we wrap up here.
Yeah. So the main things, obviously, for takeaways for you as we kind of get toward the end here. So as far as relationships with money, so what do you feel like is the most important thing in managing that? Let's get.
Well, one, having delayed gratification. Like, don't have those moments to where you live in the moment, but have them planned out.
Right.
Don't do what I did and just think, hey, let's go do this. Oh yeah, let's go do that. Let's go do that. And then you're just staying broke. So have that delayed gratification. And that, I would say that's the biggest thing. Delayed gratification, and have that mindset of abundance. Those two things, the money's going to come. If you don't have it now, it's going to come. But delayed gratification and have an abundance mindset, because there's money out there. It's just a matter of fact of how much are you getting.
Right. For me, I would say it's never too late to change your relationship with money. Because obviously, like we talk about, the way we started versus where we are now has changed drastically. And even in my everyday life, just talking to my parents now, who are now much more financially literate than they were. And so now, to the point, because like I said, we didn't really talk about money growing up, not only finances, but how to manage it. Now, every time I get on the phone with my mom or dad, we're talking about some sort of investing, some sort of something to which basically to set ourselves up for a better future. So it's never
100%.
too late to learn. So obviously, if you want to change your relationship with money, regardless of where you're at, it's always a good time to do it. So that's
just like what's the plant in the tree quote? The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Next best time
is right now, baby. Right now. So that's biggest takeaway for me. So as far as your relationship with God, biggest takeaway that you would want somebody else to take from that?
You're never going to be perfect. And even if your relationship with God is rocky and you don't practice or preach it every day, like, that's okay. Don't be too hard on yourself. Just continue to have faith and trust in God, because literally he already has your story written out. You just got to live it. It's not going to be perfect, but work every day, strive every day to build that relationship intentionally with God, and you'll be okay.
Great.
What's your takeaway on it?
For me, is to consistently be thankful. Through all things, give thanks, whether it's good, the bad, the ugly, the great. Always be thankful. Be mindful of the transitions through life, about where you've been able to come from, and understand that there's a place to attribute those things to. Like I think about years ago when my car engine blew out and it was $3,000 to pay for it, and I couldn't even fathom that amount of money in my account. Then probably a year or two ago, my catalytic converter goes out. It's $4,000, and I get to go and I basically have it fixed within the week. And I remember laughing about it, because I'm like, when that first thing happened, I couldn't even think about how this was going to get back in. It took me so long. My mom had to come and pay for it. That's what happened. So, but basically, once this happened recently, and I was able to just go pay for it, get it taken care of, it just reminded me of like, God, I'm thankful that, because the first time this happened,
you didn't have the money.
I was nowhere near it. Now I get to go put the money towards it, and I'm comfortable still at the end of the day. So being thankful just every day, understanding throughout the transitions, the ups and downs in life, just being thankful through all of those things.
An attitude of gratitude.
Attitude of gratitude, baby. Anything else? That's all you got?
That's all I got.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us today on the Real Deal podcast. That is a wrap.
Subscribe,
like,
comment, leave a review on Apple.
Leave a review on Apple and on Spotify. YouTube videos are coming.
YouTube videos will probably be up by the time this video is out.
We're way too pretty for you not to look at.
Patreon, subscribe to the Patreon. That's $5 a month for now. And big weekend ahead of us. I guess I do got one more thing to say.
Oh, yeah.
Big weekend ahead of us. Cleon's from Maryland, and, some other people are too.
Yeah.
Steelers are 7-2. Ravens are 6-3. So battle for first place in the AFC North. You know who we rocking with. Although this is signed by Deontay Johnson, who now plays
as a Raven. It's kind of like foreshadowing.
It's very unsettling, but we still love you, Deontay. That's still my dog, man. We still love you. But other than that, go Steelers. And we'll see you next week.